Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Lacy, a writer, trauma educator, and author of the upcoming memoir, Notes from a Certified Mad Woman. Hmm. After more than 3 decades working in corporate, education, healthcare consulting, and performance and storytelling, Lisa now writes and speaks about trauma, addiction, identity, recovery, and the hidden cost of performing strength for too long. Through honesty, humor, and hard-earned wisdom, she helps people feel less alone and more understood. Lisa, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for creating the space for these conversations.
All right, wow. Okay, so Lisa, can you take us back, to when you were in your 20s, right? So what was life like for you in your 20s, and what did you think you were becoming, basically?
Well, I had it all figured out, of course,
Wow.
all of it. I got very successful in the corporate arena really early. I went to school on full scholarship for performance and storytelling, and then uh, went on a cruise by myself, met somebody who lived 5 minutes away from me in Georgia. I met his best friend. He said, let's go backpacking in Alaska for 6 months. Well, needless to say, there's a lot of time in tents in Alaska, not a lot to do. So I came back pregnant with my daughter and had a choice to make. Do I want to continue to pursue acting as a young mother, or did I want to go ahead and go into the corporate arena, which I already had my foot in doing? So I chose the corporate arena and started my own business, and it was very successful right away. So that's what my 20s looked like. I waited tables, even though I was on full scholarship for school. I was a non-traditional student, of course, and then became a mother and decided to start my business in order to help raise my daughter. So in my 20s, I thought I had it all figured out.
Wow. All right, Lisa. Thank you for, sharing your beautiful story with us, honestly. And it's almost the same with those of us in our 20s today, right? We feel like we have it all figured out, or should I say we are trying to have it all figured out. But it's important to know that we can't have it all figured out, especially now in our 20s, right? Now is the time to explore various options and just do life according to what works for you, but you cannot have it all figured out once in your 20s, right? Wow,
I
so,
think it's about asking the right questions too.
mm,
I think it's about continuing. You hit it. Try.
yeah,
What are you trying? Try new things. If something doesn't
mm,
resonate with you, try something else that aligns
mm,
with you. And
mm,
please, by all means, if you are in your 20s and you are listening to this, be very particular about who you choose to cohabitate and partner with because
mm,
that is going to have such a pivotal impact on where
mm,
you are headed. I think that's one of the most important decisions you can make in young adulthood. Of course, my daughter's father and I were just friends. So we've always lived separately as we raised her and co parented the best that we could. Um, but I ended up picking a partner who was very much like the chaos in my family. So I repeated that
mm,
pattern, and it was utter, complete, nightmarish devastation. So be cautious and careful and selective. Your
mm,
energy is a privilege. It took me until 50 years old to realize it's enough to just be, and your energy is a privilege. And guess what? Not everybody gets access to it.
mm. Oh, that's a beautiful one, honestly. Like you said, be extremely selective, right, with who you want to spend the rest of your life with. Because over here we say that decision can make or mar you, honestly.
Sure enough, it can. I lived it. I
Um,
lived it. I lived it. And
hmm,
ironically, I had met him at 18 and was engaged for a bit and was like, no, this is the one for me. And when
hmm,
my daughter was, I believe, 5 or 6, we ran into each other again. And it was great, as it always is in the beginning, right? And I didn't pay attention to all the red flags. I didn't know how to, I didn't have language for it. If you are surrounded by toxic relationships, I got news for you. There's a chance you might be a little toxic too. I know I certainly
hmm,
was in my untreated addiction and unhealed mental illness. So, yeah, be selective. Your energy is a privilege and pay attention to the red flags and give it time. Give it some time because the honeymoon phase can last for a little while. And my therapist told me something once that has stayed with me all these years. She said, don't pay attention to how you feel about that person or their relationship. Rather, pay attention to how it makes you feel, not how you feel about it, but how does it make you feel? So, if after you're done spending time with someone, if you feel drained, if you feel self-doubt, if you don't feel supported and inspired and uplifted, then there's a possibility that there could be some better opportunities out there for you.
hmm. Wow. Oh, all right, Lisa. Thank you so much for this one, actually. I feel like you spoke to me directly, honestly.
Oh, good, good.
All right. And I believe it's gonna, change lives when it goes out too. And talking about growth, healing, and reinvention, right? You've spoken about high functioning survival. So when did you realize that surviving and living aren't the same thing?
About 4 months ago.
Wow.
I have a congenital blood disease that keeps me in
Oh.
and out of the hospital with near-death experiences, specifically pulmonary embolisms, which are blood clots in your lung, which are very dangerous and life-threatening. And I'm a bit of a workaholic. It's always been a coping mechanism for me. It was easy for me. I was good at it. I was successful at it. So I would get out of the hospital and go right back to work the next week. Um, my encouragement to you is to always take inventory of your life, where you're at. Are you content in it? I think happiness is a very huge goal. I don't always acquire to that. I rather look for contentment and satisfaction. And if you're not, then be brutally honest with yourself. Because you see, I was struggling not only in addiction, but in self hatred and self deprecation and so many other things. And on the surface, I looked so polished. I had the 6-figure income and the cars and the houses and the toys and all the things, but I was miserable and nobody knew it because I didn't have language for it, first of all. Second of all, I wasn't being honest with myself about how miserable I really was. Thirdly, I did not tell anyone. And so by the time I got out of that devastating, debilitating marriage, some people were like, there is no way that was happening behind the scenes. And hey, I played a part in it too. I was the one posting all the pretty pictures on social media, right? I was helping
Yes.
that polished veneer. But if you are struggling, let yourself know first, and then let a safe person know second. In other words, have they proven by history that they will support you and uplift you and encourage you? If they haven't, they might not be your safe person to go to. But again, I was struggling so alone And I
mm,
entered inpatient rehabilitation for what I thought was a minor problem with drinking and maybe a bad marriage, and came out with a chart an inch thick with all kinds of diagnoses and new words, trauma bonds and codependency and Stockholm syndrome and bottom fishing and bipolar and complex post-traumatic stress disorder and uh, physical, emotional, sexual, spiritual abuse, all new terms to me. So that was technically at 40 years old. I turned 40 in outpatient rehabilitation.
mm,
Um, was the beginning of my clinical therapeutic arena journey. And then at 50, at the beginning of this year, had another cluster of embolisms in my lungs, got some new diagnoses that were pretty debilitating, and turned 50 right after. And instead of going back to work this time, I canceled all of our plans for my birthday. And I went off on a solo sojourn with my 21-year-old Italian Greyhound, who I've had since he was 3 months old. And I
wow.
cried on a Wednesday when I was turning 50 because you know what? I wasn't doing everything I felt like I was meant to do before I transition off this earth. And telling these stories was one of those things because I think there's a lot of people out there struggling alone, and you are not alone. We all have trauma. It is part of the human experience. So if you're feeling that way, I guarantee you there is at least one person somewhere that feels that way too. So you are never, ever alone. But it does require brutal self inventory and self excavation to recognize, wow, I'm not happy here. So what did I do? I pivoted. I made a change, midlife transition change. So without fear, I just did it because I listened to my intuition. I knew I needed to go this direction. And so I am following it, and it has been crazy cool ever since.
Wow. Oh,
But yeah,
honestly.
it was most
Mm,
recently that I realized that my whole life had been a bit of a performance. And so
mm,
my personal practice right now is congruence. Can I be
mm,
the same person in all arenas of my life? The same person as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, as a boss, as a consultant? Can I be the same person across the board is my goal right now.
wow. Oh, honestly, Lisa, I want to say thank you for sharing your story with us, right? And I would like to, extend my heartfelt I just want to say I'm sorry for, the issue with your blood, right? I think you said pulmonary embolism, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And I would
That
like to
is
know
correct.
how,
Yeah.
right, before I proceed, how is your health? How do you feel now?
I feel inspired, and
Mm.
I feel like I have an agenda. I am on a mission. So it is keeping me going. The cluster of clots have now reabsorbed in my body. Your body will eventually reabsorb them with the lupus pancreatitis. Of course, the pancreatitis, the itis part, the pain part is gone, the inflammation is gone. Of course, with a diagnosis of lupus, you're going to have weird stuff, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm a bit of a sturdy gal, so I just kind of keep on clicking. But having meaning, having a purpose matters a lot because you can be on this healing journey your entire life. You're still going to have off days. And on those off days, you need something that keeps you moving forward. You need that hope. And my hope is that I do not transition off this earth with these stories locked inside of me. My hope is that these stories will help someone else stay here and enjoy the ride while you're here.
Wow. Whew. Your story is one of, let's say, finding joy and finding purpose, right, in pain, basically. Regardless of everything you're going through, you're finding purpose in it, right? And I would like to say thank you for sharing this beautiful insight with us. Like you said, you're not alone. That one stood out for me, honestly, because a lot of people feel so lonely these days, especially in my generation, right? They feel so alone and lost also. They don't know how to begin to navigate life, they don't know how to start. And then, like you said, it's normal. Traumas are normal, right? So you're not alone, basically, just like you've told us. And thank you so much for saying that, honestly. I believe it will change lives when it gets to the right person, right? And yes, I would like to ask, right, what did, addiction and recovery teach you about yourself?
Well, it taught me that I like who I am, and that
Mm,
matters. And that makes a difference because in active addiction, I hated myself. I hated myself for staying. I was confused as to why I couldn't leave because I didn't understand trauma bonds. And now I
mm,
like myself. And so you talked about people being a little lost right now, like not sure where to start. Just pick something and do it. And you know what? If it's not the right fit for you, that's okay. Do something
mm,
else. We don't have to do. I'm a neurodivergent multi-potentialite. I have ran CrossFit boxes, Gracie Jiu Jitsu martial arts training centers, been production manager of community theaters, all while running my corporate business. So it's okay to do a little bit of everything. You do not have to pick something and be tied to that for 50 years and then die. That is not what we're here to do. So
mm.
if you're listening and you're feeling lost and you're not sure where the start button is, just pick something and do it. And if it's not the right fit, let it go and then move on and try something else. But to do that, you have to be willing to be a beginner over and over. You have to be willing to learn something new, and you have to be willing not to be so great at it at first, but take the leap. Just jump.
Wow, like you said, take the leap, right? And another thing I think people need to do more often is check in with themselves, right? Because you said you found out until recently that, you've just been performing, right? Most people might not even know that they are just living, they're just living based on, should I say, survival mode, right? They
Yeah.
don't even realize it, basically.
Because it's
So,
on autopilot, right? Your survival
exactly.
mode works great. It has protected you. Maybe it protected you as a child. But a good
Mm,
question to ask yourself is, are my survival patterns still serving me, or
mm,
are they getting in the way of my relationships? And man, if at 20, you guys can let them go now and become who you are underneath all of the survival, you're going to save yourself 20 years of turmoil. I promise you that. So, what did recovery and addiction teach me? It taught me how to like who I am. I know how I
mm,
click and tick. I know how my brain works. I know how to tell the people I love, care about, and serve that this is how you can support me. These are my wants, needs, and values. And can we meet
mm,
each other in the middle on some of these? And it's made me a very skillful communicator. And at the end of the day, some days it's just me and me, and I'm okay with me now. And that's the big difference. You got to be okay with
wow,
you in your own skin when you're alone with just you. It has to be a good space.
wow. You have to be okay with you when you're alone, right? When it's just you. Oh, all right. Wow. So thank you, Lisa. And I want us to dive into what you're doing today, basically. So why do you think stories heal people in, in different ways that advice sometimes can't?
Well, I think our greatest teachers used stories. Look at Jesus. Jesus used
Mm,
stories. Look at Buddha. Buddha used stories. And stories are sticky for us. If I were to tell you,
mm,
here's 5 steps how to get unstuck, you may hear one of those and not apply
mm,
it. But if I
Mm,
tell you the story of my addiction and how I hated myself during that period of life and how through recovery, I discovered a human being that's pretty freaking awesome that sticks with you because you can see pieces of yourself in it. And
mm,
I think when we can see pieces of ourselves in the story, that's when we're going to apply it and learn from
wow. All right. So, because personally, from your story, right, I could say I'm learning a whole lot.
it.
Honestly, from your story, I've learned, to just, like you said, take inventory of your life, right? Take
Yeah.
inventory. Just like you, and also you mentioned that you could try out something. If it doesn't work out, you can always try out any other thing, right? Because most people, when they try out something and it doesn't work out, they just stop there, and
Yeah.
they feel discouraged, and the whole drive just goes away. But it's part of life. Failures are lessons. They are not necessarily failures, they are lessons, right? So if you try out and it doesn't work out, try again, try something else. I mean, yeah, I'm learning a lot, honestly. Wow.
Yeah, you're gonna find what fits for you. This
Mm,
journey that we are on in Earth School is so individualized. And I think so many of us try to fit ourselves into these boxes that we don't fit into. You know, my first husband was a pastor. I was a pastor's wife, which if you
wow.
knew me in person, you'd be like, wait, what? That makes no sense.
Wow.
But I was trying to fit myself into this box of
Mm,
okay, my child needs a father, and this looks right on paper, and but it was not me. Be you, but you got to know who you are
mm,
in order to do that. And you have to like who you are. And exactly, if something doesn't work out, it's not a failure. It is absolutely a lesson. And I'll tell you what, every single thing that I've ever tried, I am now putting to use in my executive coaching, in my
mm,
writing, and in my trauma educating. Every single thing I have tried out in my life is now being put to use. So now it all makes sense. It
mm,
might not make sense while you're in the middle of it, and that has to be okay.
mm. Wow. All right. You said know who you are and like who you are, right? And that involves us reconnecting with ourselves. So, talking about reconnecting with ourselves, are there, like practical steps, or should I say daily habits one could, begin to do to help us reconnect with ourselves better?
Absolutely. You know, one I use that I think is so important, especially for trauma survivors, especially for women, especially for sexual abuse and assault survivors, I make sure I don't add any additional trauma to my story. And it looks like
Mm,
this. So I've got boatloads of trauma previously, right? Childhood
mm,
trauma, early adulthood trauma from my second marriage. So what I don't want to do is add more. So I don't want something to happen and have it pop up next year, right? We don't want that. So
mm,
what I do is if something happens, say, okay, an example, I'm in a crowd and my husband says something that rewounds or triggers me. And I
mm,
don't say something right then, of course, because we don't do that. It's just our rule, our agreement. We don't call each other out in front of people. So, but say he says something off-putting without realizing it, but it triggers me, it rewounds me. I make sure within the next 24 to 48 hours, I circle back to that moment and I process it. So maybe I need to cry about it to figure out what it's really about. Because I guarantee you that comment that he said isn't probably about what's happening now. It's probably about something that my father did when I was 15 years old. So I
mm,
make sure I process it within the next 24 to 48 hours. I set a timer, 15, 20 minutes. I journal about it. I'll write in my notes on my phone about it. I'll sit and just think about it. If you're not a big journaler, I'll cry about it. I'll get angry about it, whatever that looks like, but I make sure I move through that. So guess what? I just made sure that that moment is not going to affect something in my life next year. So
mm.
it's a great way to make sure you don't add trauma upon what you already are carrying.
All right. So yes, thank you, Lacey, for that beautiful one, I would say. And I'm taking notes just so you do. Because these are something
We can
I'm
always
gonna
replay the episode. Yep.
right, we can actually. So yes, thank you, Lisa. And you know, finally, I would like to ask, right, what kind of impact do you hope your books, or should I say stories, will leave behind?
I used to push. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to leave a legacy, right? Like,
Mhm.
there's so much pressure. With this book that goes on pre-sale in October and we launch November 1, all I want people to do is when they close the book and they're done reading it, and they've got the field guide companion right there to work through some embodiment reflection exercises, anything that it pulls up for you that may feel like it's traumatic. I just want people in a reflective state, taking inventory of their own lives, going, wow, I saw pieces of myself in that story. How can I change my life? That then will change the lives of others, that then will change the freaking world. If you change yourself, you change the world. It's a ripple effect. It's quantum physics, it's quantum mechanics. Observation is not neutral. All you have to do is observe that you are not in the place you want to be, and you have already started to make the changes. I just want people to be reflective about their own lives and see themselves in some of these stories.
Wow. Like you said, be reflective about your own life and see themselves in your stories, like resonating with the story. And after resonating, you make conscious decision to want to better your life, right? To do better, to heal, right? To enjoy your life, to love life, basically. Wow.
Yeah, and to
Oh,
make those choices, and you said it, conscious.
mm,
For many of
conscious.
us trauma survivors, our choice was taken from us. Well, guess what? You
Mm,
are in control now. You get to
right.
make the choices. So make sure you're not on autopilot and you're choosing your life.
Wow. Whew. All right, like you said, make sure you're not on autopilot, right? It takes a lot of work to know that, but it's possible
It
anyway.
does. It does, but you can do it. You can do it. And the
Right.
earlier you do it, the more suffering you're going to save yourself. That's for sure.
Hmm. Oh, I mean, honestly, like you just said it right there. The earlier you do it, the more suffering you save yourself. And I like
Yeah.
that you admitted that it's hard. Honestly, it is hard. But you don't want to, this is to listeners, honestly. You don't want to continue going that path and continue being in pains constantly. So you need to do it now, do it fast, so you can save yourself on time, save yourself from unnecessary pains, adding more
Yeah.
trauma to your trauma, right? Just,
Yes, no trauma on top of trauma. We stop.
right.
It ends here. It ends with you. It ends with me.
Mhm.
It ends with us. Yeah.
Whew. Wow. Honestly, this I would say thank you. This has been, deeply insightful. Thank you for sharing your story and reminding us that healing doesn't, come from pretending that we are okay, right? But from, having the courage to tell the truth, to tell yourself the truth, actually. That is where healing begins. So thank you, Lisa. And it brings me to the final segment of my podcast. I call it the rapid fire segment, right?
Mhm.
So you could either answer with a word or a phrase starting now. So, what is one word that describes your journey?
Mm. Satisfaction.
Satisfaction. All right. So, do you prefer coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
All right. So, what is something you wish you learned sooner?
What is something I wish I learned? How to ride a bicycle.
Wow. Okay. Oh,
I
now
can
I'm
do many
happy.
things. I still cannot ride a bike very well. So, yes,
Oh,
that.
okay. Okay. Now I'm happy because I can ride a bicycle, but I can't do so many things, anyways. Okay. All right. So, what is a book that changed your life?
The art war of art.
Hmm. Oh, and finally, what brings you joy these days?
Just time with myself.
Oh, okay, like you said, fine with yourself. Oh, so yes, thank you, Lisa. This has been amazing, like I said earlier. And finally, where can people, get to learn more about you and connect with you, basically?
It's easy to find me. You can go to lisalacy.com. That's LISALACY.com. You can get on the pre-sale list for my book, subscriber list. You'll find all my socials on there. LinkedIn is a good place to go. I'm very active on there. But yeah, just head to the website and it'll tell you everything. And if you want to reach out to me with your own story, I'm always interested in hearing from people. My email address, you and I answer all of them myself, is contact@lisa-lacy.com.
Wow, lisalacy.com. All right. So, yes, I'm going to put the link in the show notes so it's easily accessible for listeners. And to my listeners, I want to say thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this. And also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Once again, thank you, Lisa. Do have a beautiful day ahead of you.
Thank you so much. It's been
You're
an honor and a pleasure to be here. I enjoyed it very much. Have a great day.
welcome. Thank you. Take care.